Hello, everybody. Welcome to the hot seat with AMovieGuy.com. I am Leo Brady. I am here with the extremely talented Jill Gevargizian. I am so excited to be here with you today. This is awesome. My fans, my audience know I have been talking about The Stylist like crazy. I saw it at Cinepocalypse, I think, like right before the pandemic was starting. So I want to start off like, I know that this is, it's already on DVD, like people can get it on Blu-ray now. And like, you've been talking about this movie probably for what feels like an eternity right now. So I just wanted to sort of ask you, starting from the short, Kickstarter, now on Blu-ray, did you ever have a point where you're like, I am just over with The Stylist, I am done? Or is it just something that is a fabric of you? Do you live it and breathe it?
It's more something, that I live and breathe. And now for it to like, be coming to like this close, that's the really weird thing. It's like I've been trying to get this movie made for so long, like you said, that it was weird that like now that it finally happened, it was a very weird realization before our world premiere for me to be like, oh my God, now we're reaching the point that people are going to see this movie. Like that's a horrifying realization.
Yeah.
Like it's both like terrifying and very exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
But it was never like I felt like anything I ever gave up on. I just kept getting to the point where I was just like so frustrated with trying to get it made. I was like, what are we gonna do? Like, and I finally got to the point where I was like, we are just gonna do it somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it's kind of interesting. I wanted to like sort of lead into my next question too, is where because you're sort of at the end of the experience and you're able to sort of step back and look at the genre itself of horror films, are you like, and I know it's kind of a big broad stroke question to ask, but how do you think the current state of horror films is right now? Just like to even have a conversation about the genre itself. Do you think it's great? Do you think only the strong will survive? Because I think like you've had a determination to make this film, and I think that says so much, but it's not that easy for everybody. So do you think it's a tough genre to keep working in, or is it great? There's a great community, right? I mean,
Yeah, I think like in general, horror is exciting right now as far as like all the stuff that's coming out and all the different, I feel like voices we're seeing. And I feel like even without even trying, I log all the films I watched, for the first time every year. And it's like, I note when they're female made, and it seems like a lot of the time I'm seeking them out, but in the last year was just like tons just coming out and more naturally, whatever that means. But or organically. But as far as it being hard to get stuff made, I think that's just something that's how it always is, how it's always been. I think in any genre, it's like a huge privilege and a lucky thing, I think, to get to make a film. I think it's something we have to like remind ourselves when we get really down as filmmakers, like, why haven't I got to make this thing yet? And it's like, well, really, we're asking for a lot to make a movie. It's like, even to make it on like a bare bone situation, it's like you still need a huge amount of money compared to, for like a normal person. And so I really think if we like, even it's hard to not get annoyed when you're trying to get something made for a long time, but to realize like there's tons of people in that same position. So it's kind of just like, you're so fortunate if you do strike a situation where you get to make something. I think it's a matter of just like, I feel like it was like sheer will that finally this film like came to be, was like that we were just like going to do it.
Yeah.
Because it started as a short film and is almost all of the same, especially like the core team that came back, like our production designer, our cinematographer, our lead actress. And so I was like, I knew if all four of us were like determined to make it happen. I was like, it'll happen because like if us four do it, then everyone else will. Somehow it will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and that also sort of, it definitely speaks to you for yourself. I mean, I like was wondering, basically, as the director, what would you say sort of was the one trait that you brought to the table that was allowing this and enabled this film to just finally be made?
I think it is just that like sheer determination, which is like connected to how like passionate I am about it. And because it really felt like this whole team was it was like a dream team to work with, even down to like every person on the crew. And I think that like that passion and drive is like infectious in a group, and especially on a project that was this small budget to really, we had a huge crew for as small of a film this was. And you wouldn't have thought it was a small film if you rolled up on a day, and there'd be days I'd be like, how are there like 50 people working today? What is going on?
Yeah.
But it was incredible. And I think, yeah, it's really about like that determination and like confidence in what you're trying to do, is that like spreads on. If you're, as a leader, you have to make confident decisions and just show that they're like, this is what we're doing. And it's going to, I've pep talks with myself, honestly, on my way to set, is like, in pre-production, you're allowed to like stew over decisions forever and be like, should I
Yeah.
do this? I don't know. But like when that day is like, you make a decision like right then and you move on. Like this is like, it's decision making time.
Yeah.
On the spot. You can't just stew over them like on the shooting.
Well, yeah, too. I mean, and I think you talk about that infectious sort of attitude, which sort of bleeds into sort of everybody you're working with. And I think, it was interesting when I watched the like special features on the film. You talked about like fangirling about your two leads, about how you were like just a fangirl of Najarra and a fangirl of Bria. And like, you just were at first had a relationship like that. But like, how has that relationship grown with those two? I mean, one, their performances are fantastic in this, and they totally get the tone of the film, right? That there's a duality, there's there's one side, there's a second side of being a woman, being a person, that feels lost, or being a person that feels like they're moving on to another stage that they're not ready for. Obviously it started with you guys maybe not knowing each other that much, but now, I mean, would you say you guys are just best friends, or how has that relationship grown from point A to where we are today?
Yeah, especially with Najarra, who plays Claire. It's been now so long. We made the short film in freaking 2015.
Yeah.
Wait, is that even true? That's not true. Yes, it is true.
Yeah.
It came out in 16, but we spent forever on a post-production for a short film on that. But I feel like I learned so many things. But
yeah.
On the short film, I was honestly even more intimidated because I really didn't know her very well at all at that point, and I knew her through her film Contracted that she stars in, and was just like I said, kind of a fangirl at that point, and so enamored with like how talented she is. And so with the short film, we were so blown away by how she brought Claire to life in this way that was like, I think how I could have only like dreamed of her being so empathetic and just someone that you care about while being so disturbing. And that's such like a fine line that she just was like, so for what I saw, how she did that in the short film, there was no way I was ever considered someone else ever being the stylist. But yeah, it's like that time we had between, she read like every version of the feature we wrote and like gave it in her insight. And we worked on another short film in the meantime. So we really, and have traveled to so many film festivals. So really, we've become really close, and it's, I think, just benefited the feature when we finally got to make it. Cause we were like, we could communicate on a whole nother level. We're like close friends now, not just a professional relationship. And it's like Claire has become ours over like 5 years from the feature to the short to the feature. And she knows her, I feel like, as well as I do. Like, she's not just my creation anymore. And like, I could ask her questions that I don't like, if I don't know for sure something about Claire or what she might do in a specific situation. And I
Yeah.
trust her that she knows her as well as I do, which is the weirdest. It sounds really silly to say, but it's like she's become a real person between us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to work with her on everything and for the rest of my life if I can. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then with Bria, she's like kind of was even more starstruck when I first met her through a
Yeah.
project, because grew up watching like Heroes and Dexter she was in and all these big things, and
Right.
met through her through another project we haven't yet got to make. But ever since I got to meet her and get to know her personality, she always really just kept coming to mind with this character, Olivia. And once we finally decided to do the Kickstarter was when I finally asked her. I was already working with her on another project at that point for a couple of years, but didn't want to ask her till it was like a serious question, till like we had a real plan to make, not like, if we ever make it, do you want to do this? But
Right.
we're
Right.
going to make it, do you want to do it? And
Yeah.
she was so busy, it really came down to can she do it between her like 12 other movies that are coming out right now, which is freaking incredible.
Right.
But it was such a cool thing to work with someone like her, because she's a writer director, and but doesn't try to do that when she's being an actor. She's just so professional and so experienced. It was very intimidating. I feel like it's like a theme in my life. I'm always working with people that intimidate me, but it like I learned so much from them.
Yeah.
And it like forces me to pretend like I feel like I'm as experienced as they are in the moment. And I'm just like, it's all like a poker face situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that actually, like, that kind of, I'm being honest, that doesn't surprise me, but it's like the honest answer, right? It's like the way to go about it is, I've always felt the way I am as a film critic a lot of times is just fake it and make it, and like work off of that confidence that you can get from other people, because you kind of thrive in those moments, and that's almost the better way to do it, as opposed to being afraid and choking, or or
Yeah.
screwing up in the moment. So yeah, I find that very commendable, and at least there's a lot of humility in that, right? It's not like an easy thing to do, and I find a lot of directors I've talked to can be like, you know, oh yeah, we just did this, or oh yeah, we just, when I'm on set, I know what I'm doing and I'm confident and I can tell them to do this, this, and that. It's really hard. It's scary, and there's pressure, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Because ultimately, like the end of the line is you. Like, if there's a question or it's like, if you don't have an answer, then who else has the answer? So it's like,
Yeah.
you just, yeah. But that's exciting. That's thrilling. And, or to know people believe in you also, then that can like help the fear subside. Cause it's like, all these people are here because they all believe in, whether it's you, but they believe in the story we're telling all together. So it's some of Tristan Risk, actually, the actress I worked with on my first short film,
Yeah.
told me that. I admitted how nervous I was the night before. And she was like, realize that we're like, the way she put it to me was like, that we're all here for the same reason, to like make this thing the best we can. Like, no one's here like judging how you do it, or here to, so it's just like, it really just made me think of that from that perspective. I was like, it really helped me, I don't know,
Yeah.
calm down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, and also too, I mean, like, there's an interesting thing about this film when I first watched it, and I wrote about it in my review a lot, was like, I had seen the short, and like you said, I think I had seen the short at like a film festival, Cinepocalypse, or might have even been like Fantasia Fest, something like that. And when I heard that you guys were turning it into a full-length feature, part of me was like, oh, this is gonna get gory. They're gonna like really hammer it home, and it's just gonna be a blood fest, I think that's a common misconception in a lot of horror, or those who don't watch enough horror. But in the feature, there, I just find like, and I mean this on a positive level, I just find you had a lot of great restraint in the storytelling. And can you talk about sort of not just going straight to, and it has its bursts, right? It has its moments of splattered blood and things that are like scary when you're dealing with a movie about like a stylist serial killer in a way, right?
Yeah.
But you guys really dig into the character of Claire. Can you talk a little bit about like working with the writing, just like getting the script right and making sure that it is an actual character piece as opposed to just splattering blood everywhere?
Yeah, that was like always my hope with the project. So honestly, our earlier versions were too like even less horror than it is at its final state.
Yeah.
And like I've always loved character pieces and like anti-hero type stories, specifically like, about the bad person, or not even necessarily a bad person, but just like a very complicated character, like even Sling Blade, which isn't a horror film, but that's a
Right.
such a freaking beautiful film, but like such a complicated story and
Yeah.
upsetting situation. But so I always wanted it to be about Claire, and like really confrontational in the sense of like you really care for her, but we don't excuse what she's doing or try to make an excuse for it. Same thing. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
rambling
Yeah.
there.
Right.
But it was uh a matter like the hardest part was really just deciding how much to tell, because I never wanted to lay it all out, which you can see in the film. I didn't want to literally say what happened to her, like, or spell out this is why she does this. And
Yeah.
a lot of examples we turn to do, or they flash back to the childhood, which we tried that, even though from the start I really was trying to not do it. Then we tried it just to see, we got to see if it works. Maybe I'm wrong. And
Yeah.
still didn't like it, but it was a challenge of like, yeah, how much do we tell? I always knew I wanted it to kind of be this like story of her downfall. That's what it is to me, like her killing career. She's been getting away with this for so long, and this is kind of about the end of it, where it's no longer going well. And
Yeah.
so I just always want to be about her falling apart mentally. And in fact, when we were kind of advised to put more horror in it, more kills, maybe, I was very worried about that. I didn't want it to be a slasher, even though it was kind of inspired by slashers. I was like, how is there not a hairstylist slasher movie already?
Yeah.
Um, but the kills that were actually added, and that was when Eric Stoltz came on, who wrote Late Phases, a werewolf film. It's pretty fucking awesome. But
Yeah.
we met through a project, How I Met Bria. But so I've been working with Eric for a while. There's two Erics on this film, so it's
Right.
very confusing.
Eric Havens, right?
Yes.
Eric Havens.
Eric Havens and I wrote the Stylist short, and we've been writing the feature. And then I feel like we just got to a point where we were like, we know like the structure of this film, the beginning and the end. We don't know like how to amp this up a little bit. And
Yeah.
Eric came in, Stoles, and like kind of rearranged things we already had and added these freaking crazy awesome scenes that I was at first worried. I was like, I don't want her to just be like killing people willy-nilly. And it's already, how is she getting away with this? I understand the suspension of disbelief. I'm asking for a lot already.
Yeah.
So it was a hard balance of like, how do we do it, make it enough without it being just like a maniac, like she's killing 12 people in a film. And
Yeah.
I always wanted her to be super emotional, which I realized that just came down to Najarra's performance of her being like relatable. I know that sounds morbid, but relatable on an emotional level, while what she does is very over the top, even in the most crazy serial killer story.
Yeah.
Her like routine is not very believable. And I was personally like battled with that with the writing. Like, I want her to feel real, while what she does is very, very over the top. And I was like that. I think Najarra is why that works.
100%. I mean, it's interesting because when I first interviewed her, it was for this film she did in Chicago here called Mercury in Retrograde, which was a film that like was very much a, introspective, but a piece where she was a character that had an emotional past and had a lot of emotion. So like when I heard she was going to be in this film, I was just like, I was so excited and so really amped to just see what she was going to do more with the character, because her skills are just so good. And I think you talk about like with the script and what you add and finding that balance, it totally comes out because you have the emotional side mixed perfectly with the slasher sort of style of stuff. And that, I think that's important in horror, right? Because I think if you go too far, then audiences are lost and they're just like, all right, this is getting ridiculous. You know, it's
Well,
kind of,
in their defense, they all have their place. Like I still
no
love
doubt.
a straight up slasher.
Yes.
And I joke / maybe it'll happen that I would make a sequel and then we would just go all out and like,
Right.
because that's when you do. I feel like that's where you go there if you want to go there.
For sure.
But yeah, Najarra's performance in this, I feel like she's so good at just like, I think we benefit from her thinking about this character for so long, but it's like,
yeah,
so much of a role is without even saying anything, and the whole movie is on her. She has like no time off when we shot this movie, and
yeah,
it's like she says so much without saying any, barely moving her face. It's such an internal character, and
yeah.
by the end of it, I honestly feel guilty as the director. Like, I'll put you through so much emotionally. I'm so sorry. It's such a heavy role. Like, it's not like a cheerful thing to go through. And so we would really laugh when, like, if there was a moment that Claire was like happy in a scene, which is like never, like maybe once. Like Claire gets to smile kind of in this moment. Oh my gosh.
You have to be like, don't send me your therapy bill, please. Like, I'm just the director, not your not
It's interesting though, like a lot of scheduling, because with scheduling a shoot, like there's all the practical obvious things we have to schedule around, like how the makeup changes through the day, how if there's going to be blood on somebody, say that to these kind of things. But it's like emotionally what an actor goes through, that needs to, like, a movie like this, like she's in almost every single shot. It's like a lot of very upsetting things. It's like you can't expect an actor to go from like this very upsetting moment and then, like, 5 minutes later we're doing this and then back. It's like that is insane. And you realize how much of that is in this movie, or a lot of it just being very upset or anxious. And like, wow, I was like, I realized in hindsight how much of my anxiety I put into this character. And I'm like, oh, I've worked out a lot of my mentalness, my mental health into this thing.
Hey, that is how great art is created, honestly. And even going into that, can you talk a little bit about like your influences? Talk about like film that's influenced you, directors that have influenced you. Was there any of that you wanted to bring to the table, or was it really just sort of a labor of love of just like, this is me, this is more a piece of my heart and my love of cinema? Yes, but
it's so many things, because it's so personal, since it's like I'm a hairstylist. It has so much of me in this film, but it's also, it kind of started like as a concept alone, as kind of like a Leatherface-esque character of her wearing skin and being like acting as that person, which I feel like that's how he is. He changes personality per mask. And so it was definitely a lot of influence by him and Lucky McKee's May, no question. And then, but when it came down character wise, I feel like, but when it came to kind of structuring the film, it was a lot of thrillers, like from like 70s, a lot of 60s, 70s thrillers to like modern stuff, to like, modern as far as like Black Swan or Neon Demon. And then older stuff, like obviously we have a lot of Brian De Palma influence in it. I feel like with a lot of cinematography was inspired by the 70s with this like zooms and doing split screen. And we made like rules for the film. Like we use zooms when Claire's like losing, like in Claire mode. We had these like the Claire stare, and we even had these like Claire what is it we call it? The Claire trance, when she's like looking at things and it's just like in her own world. It's like slow motion world. But I went through all these films. Actually, I found this that had like similar themes narratively, and how they visually brought out those themes with whether it's editing or cinematography.
Yeah.
and learned so much. Like I discovered so many films like that I feel like most people discover in film school. I didn't go to film school.
Yeah, this was your film school, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's how it's done.
But like a Bergman's Persona and that who
Yeah.
is it? Three Women by Robert Altman, which are
Yeah.
I was reading A House of Psychotic Women by Kayla Janice, which is a fucking incredible book. But she has a whole chapter on like doppelganger films about like double that just theme. And I never thought about The Stylist in that way when it clearly was for a long time. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, that's the kind of movie we're writing. This is like a double theme. And with Olivia, the other character is like the opposite of Claire and the
Right.
same at the same time.
Yeah.
And when I just like when that like clicked in my head, I then wanted to watch all these movies with that same theme and how they brought that out. And I realized, oh my God, there's this whole subgenre of like obsession movies about like women obsessed with other women, almost wanting to become them.
Right.
And love the way that like Persona used stacking to like bring the characters together, and then the split screen thing. And
Yeah. Yeah. Like with
I just sort of stole all these things and like try to make them ours in different ways, and just learn so much making this film.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like with De Palma's Sisters, that's the movie that I
Yeah.
brought up. Like, I just
Yes.
think, or
That's when I watched for the first time while
yeah,
preparing for this.
yeah, or even Passion, right, with Rachel McAdams and Numi Rapace. Like
I haven't seen that.
Oh, that's. I mean, I think that's like even closer to The Stylist as much too. But yeah, so it's like there's I think that is a theme of cinema that like honestly lasts and will like resonate forever. I think that's like what's so important about The Stylist and why it's such a good film is because it will feel timeless 20 years from now, right? Like I think it's important that you make a film that you know doesn't last long over time. And I think of movies like even what's the Cronenberg film, you know, with the twins. Why am I forgetting the name of it? But yeah, or you know, movies with like even for me, Alien Covenant. I'm a huge fan of that film where there's two androids sort of facing head to head. That I think that tends to resonate more because there's always that duality inside all of us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, it's funny with Sisters, you know, with De Palma, I had seen his bigger films, which he's made a gazillion movies, and especially like so many thrillers from the 70s to the 80s that are just like, what? I watched so many for the first time, and I'm like, where have I been? Well, with Sisters and then Blowout, and there's still like so many I'm trying to watch.
Right. Like
But
with Carrie or
yeah, it's like Carrie and Scarface that everybody has watched. But which Carrie's an incredible film too, that definitely had a lot of inspiration, like so many connections to this film. It was more like I realized how many connections we had, and we like the whole scene, spoiler alert, where we kill me was very like Carrie, not inspiration, kind of like the nightgown Claire's wearing and everything.
Yeah.
But the split screen sequence in Sisters specifically, where they reveal like it's kind of the whole sequence where the cops are coming up to her door and she's trying to hide it's like, but the end of it, which we totally ripped off, that like split screen zoom that they do, which we did this like one zooming in, one zooming out to reveal that like they're in the same place. Right. And I was like, I think it's the first time I had ever seen like, you see split screen all the time, but like it was like used in this way that like it had a payoff. Like it was like a sequence that had a punchline in a way, like it wasn't just something to do. And I was like, that is such a cool way to like reveal something.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I had this like epiphany. I'm like, we have this whole sequence that makes sense to be in split screen where the characters were doing the same thing. We were just going to shoot them, like edit it normally, like back to back. I was like, we should do it side by side. And I just had this like crazy, I'm thinking if we didn't do that, the movie would be way fucking too long. It's already too long. Sorry. But I like text my DP that night. I'm like, oh my God, what if this whole fucking sequence is split screen? I like lost my mind. And he's like, that might work. And then like I just went on like this whole
Tangent.
crazy thing.
Yeah. The Cronenberg movie was Dead Ringers, by the way. That's the movie that
I haven't even seen. I've got to watch it.
Jeremy Irons. That's like, and that's a movie that is really kind of about two twins like having a very strange mental connection. So yeah, but I totally like I listen to you. You're still critiquing your movie even after it's already got
You've got to
a 2-disc special edition.
It's too long.
So I mean I've kept you for a while. So tell me a little bit like what's the next project for you? I mean honestly, I'm hoping like this is like and you talk about it like the financing's always the question, right? It's always what sort of that's the chicken or the egg. It's like can I just go out and make a movie or do I need to just get the financing going? So what's the next project for you? Do you have you started writing? Do you have like other things coming up? Because clearly you're very good at this directing stuff and I hope you continue to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I am dying to like be on set again.
Yeah.
That's the thing about directing is you have like there's so much time between being on set to prepare for something to make.
Yeah.
Like everyone else on the crew that works any other position, I'm like, you guys don't understand. You get to like then go just work on something else next.
Yeah.
A director has to wait 3 years maybe to make something else.
Yeah. Right.
That's why I'm like, let's make anything, a music video, a short film to tomorrow. Let's just make something.
Right. Especially now that we're coming out of the pandemic and everything,
yeah.
you know, which is a whole other, you know, thing. That
yeah. But it's like a few different things. I'm attached as, you know, to direct a few things that are in that process of trying to, you know, the development. So we're trying to either find cast or start to find financing. And one of them I'm super excited about that I can, I guess, feel somewhat talk about. It's with Matt Black and Lawrence Vanicelli. They wrote Porno, the horror comedy that came out a few years ago.
Yes.
A horror film, not a porno, but
right. I've
been working with them now for a little over a year, and it's a script that I love so much that it's just like I connected to it so personally. I was just like, how did you guys write this as two non-female identifying humans? Because it's just such a like a specific thing that I related to so much, and it's just kind of relates to what it's like to be a woman dealing with kind of just men in your life that don't understand or like that take no for the wrong way or don't understand, take you being friendly as the wrong thing. Like it's hard to be a woman and just be.
Yes.
And how what that's like to kind of, and that translated into a horror film. And I was like, this is incredible, but not that topical. It's kind of just like layered deep under there.
Yeah. That's exciting.
I've been excited to like I was saying, it's scary to have the Stylist be over, but it's like, oh my God, I have room in my brain to like get to write something else. And it's weird. It's hard for me to even call myself a writer because it's like the thing I'm not very confident in as far as compared to directing and producing.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like the kind of writer that the people I work with that write like multiple scripts every year. It can take me like 2 years to get one out of like to sit down and make myself actually get it out of my brain. I'll think about something and outline it for years. And, but yeah, I've got something I'm like kicking my ass to sit down and fucking do, but I don't really like to talk about stuff till I'm making it. But, it's actually something that's totally not horror at all. That's really just kind of like a gritty drama that I'm just really excited to get out of my brain finally.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I'm super excited. You know, I love The Stylist. I do. It's, you know, in my top 20. I mean, like we're calling it a 2021 movie, right? It's not like
well, it's always confusing because festival, you know, like festival premiered last year, but it came out this year.
Yeah. So and people can watch it on demand now, and they can rent it.
Yes.
And they can buy it, and it's honestly it's fantastic. So I'm hoping more people will get to see it. And it does have, in my opinion, even it has an ending that you might even be able to see coming, and it still works, which I think is a big achievement in a movie, because I think a lot of times audiences are trying to like be the smart ones and decipher what's gonna happen. In this movie, it doesn't really matter, you know. It's like you're gonna see what you see, and that's it.
I'm glad you say that, because I always knew, I'm like, this isn't like one of those, it's not like a twist movie. This isn't like we're revealing something crazy.
Right.
Or I mean, kind of, but it's like, this is the end of you've been watching this horrible downward spiral. You know, it's going to like have this horrible punctuation. I feel like I kind of wanted people to be dreading like something horrible is coming.
Right.
Like for sure. Maybe we don't know exactly what, but like, there's no way like this is a happy ending.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jill Gevargizian, so great to talk to you. This has been fantastic.
Thank you.
I love chatting with you online, and tell our audience where they can find your tweets at, and where to look out for you.
Yes. Follow me at Jill6 or Jill.com. Sixtape.com is my website.
Okay.
Jill6 is me with 2 X's on all the 6s.
Yep.
And follow the Stylist Film on all the social medias too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate you talking with me today, and we'll have this interview up next week.
Thank you so much.
Telling our audience to watch it, and yeah, thanks again.
Yes, please watch the movie and tell us what you think.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Jill. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Let me stop.